In early 2019, Daryl Harris was charged with burglary. As it seems, his DNA was found at the crime scene inside a Dunkin' Donuts. As a result, he lost his job, was forced to retain a lawyer, and had to move in with his parents. This unfortunate stream of events would never have occurred without the use of a new technology known as the Magic Box, which allows for instantaneous local DNA testing, the latest and greatest in policing. Yet, according to the New York Daily News on October 19, 2019, Daryl Harris's arrest was a mistake that resulted from the use of the heralded Magic Box. Sadly, this occurrence is not isolated, with the Texas Tribune of January 30th, 2020 indicating that there are millions of DNA samples housed in unregulated state databases linked to the Magic Box, leading not only to unwarranted arrests, but privacy violations, invalid incarceration, and even the death penalty. Thus today, we must draw back the curtains to reveal the secret damages inflicted by the Magic Box, determine why it isn't being regulated, before examining ways to eliminate the use of magic from the criminal justice system. Because the concept of now you see it, now you don't may work when applied to cards or even rabbits, but can never be the case when discussing a human life, as disappearing can mean a lifetime of incarceration or even death. According to FBI.gov, last accessed September 28, 2020, there are 14.2 million DNA samples in CODIS, the federal DNA database. Another 26 million in private databases such as Ancestry.com and 23andMe, and unrecorded millions more housed in state databases. This, coupled with Lexicology of January 30, 2020, which predicts that the DNA testing market is exploded from the value of $2 billion in 2018 to $20.8 billion in 2024, means we cannot turn a blind eye to the problem, as it is not under an invisibility cloak. Yet, it is not the sheer number of Americans whose DNA fingerprints are at risk, but rather what is being done with this data. Our problems are twofold: privacy violations and questionable accuracy. But first, privacy violations. On January 30, 2020, in the National Law Review article entitled "Why We Are Losing Our DNA Privacy Rights and What Legislators Can Do to Save Them," describes law enforcement DNA testing as the nuclear weapon of identifying technology. The American Civil Liberties Union of 2020 indicates that it reveals much more and more intimate knowledge than simply our identities, including our propensity for diseases, our family members, and our ancestry. DNA can also reveal inherent susceptibilities to alcoholism and drug use, and people who give over their DNA to police collection also put family members at risk, as law enforcement is now tracking suspects through DNA family ties. Additionally, there's the problem of questionable accuracy. The rapid DNA trial has raised concerns all over the world. In a 2017 report, the Swedish Forensic Center halted its use of rapid DNA trial because 25% of all blood samples failed, creating a faulty profile. Without oversight, these DNA profiles could be accepted and used in casework or uploaded to the DNA database. New York serves as the nightmare example for the misuse of the Magic Box database. Their database is filled with individuals who have not been charged or sometimes even convicted of a crime. They're filled with individuals who have had their cases dismissed, who have been acquitted, who have their DNA collected in a DNA dragnet. Oftentimes, individuals' DNA are taken without a court order or their consent, and sometimes even taken secretly in police custody, including an example from a 12-year-old boy's soda can. If the Supreme Court does not compel you to identify yourself or show ID to a police officer without reasonable suspicion, why are we allowing investigators a constitutional backdoor to our DNA simply because we threw a can of Coke in the trash? Most of us like knowing how magic tricks are done, yet this time may be the exception. According to the New York Times on January 21st, 2020, Donald Trump signed the Rapid DNA Act in 2017, implemented in 2019, which allowed law enforcement officers to link the Magic Box database to CODIS. This means in as little as 90 minutes, your DNA could be run under both the state and federal DNA database. And according to the National Law Review, 19 states have absolutely no regulations for both the Magic Box database or the DNA samples. Validating this point, Detective Van Griff of the Bedlam Police Department in Pennsylvania suggests you barely need a pulse to use this instrument, and that there are no rules written anywhere. In a statement in 2020, the National District Attorneys Association said that they do not support the use of rapid DNA for crime scene DNA analysis because this DNA is not being analyzed by experienced DNA analysts. In addition to lack of oversight, 31 states have enacted the DNA arrestee law, which authorizes the analysis of individuals' DNAs who have been charged and arrested, but not convicted of a crime. According to an ACLU article on October 2nd, 2019, 90% of individuals asked to give a sample accepted. Police officers dismissed this, saying that criminals do stupid things. But more likely, people felt as if they did not have a choice. So, how do we put an end to this magic show? The solution is simple. We pull a rabbit out of our hat. Fortunately, a few states have shown us their hand, providing us with their tricks. Initially, we need to protect ourselves from misuse by regulating the rapid DNA at a state level, by imposing regulations similar to that in Pennsylvania, which puts an end to voluntary collection by requiring police officers to get a warrant prior to collecting DNA. According to the National Law Review on January 30th, 2020, requiring police officers to obtain warrants prior to collecting DNA, prohibiting research on family members without express permission, and ensuring expungement of DNA once it is no longer needed, ensures the protection of the individual, while still allowing police officers to catch perpetrators. The great state of New York has given us the key to a great magic act, basically making the problem of the magic box vanish. Our solution is simple: set restrictions. In order to do this, we need to model after the Identification Index legislation as reported by the New York State Bar on February 25th, 2020. This law makes it clear that no county, city, village, or town may maintain or establish a computerized identification index. According to FBI.gov, they are working hard to set restrictions on what can and cannot go into CODIS, who has access to this information, as well as who can check for contamination and errors. This technology demands a formal, legally binding set of restrictions on the use, retention, and collection of DNA. In order to stop this, we must act now. Perform your own magic trick by using the magic word. Please call your federal representative or senator and let them know that these unregulated police practices are not acceptable. We must not allow legislation to languish in committee. The identification legislation can work on a national scale. Call your representative and let them know that we must start holding police officers accountable. Without your action, the Magic Box's Houdini's Act will continue to break free from any consequences and put more and more innocent lives behind bars. Today, we have pulled back the curtains to reveal the secret damages inflicted by the Magic Box, determine why it isn't being regulated, before ensuring ways to eliminate the use of magic from the criminal justice system. Daryl Harris assumed he'd be leaving behind a few crumbs when he left Dunkin' Donuts, but never assumed that he'd be leaving behind DNA that would lead to his fraudulent arrest. We need to start regulating these deceptive practices of storing, collecting, and checking DNA to the realm in which it was intended, an act reserved for a magic show. Abracadabra.